Forgive me, what are the different subgenres of horror? Because it's interesting, like your movie could be divided into different subgenres just depending on how they want to market it.
Well, it's the marketing divides it into different subgenres. But basically it's like, there's like, the slasher movies. You get slasher movies, you get, creature films. You can get more science fiction films in the horror genre. I mean, like Malignant was medical horror. So it was like a medical horror subgenre. You have supernatural subgenre. And within the supernatural, you can have supernatural like possession, exorcist, or you can have ghost. So there's basically all these different little subgenres in horror. And lots of times they'll mix. Like our last film that is on the festival circuit right now, Echoes of Fear.
Oh, great.
It's a movie. It's a supernatural horror movie, supernatural horror ghost movie. But it takes an interesting turn. Still stays a supernatural ghost movie, but it takes an interesting turn, which we don't talk about because we don't want to ruin the movie for people.
Sure. Okay.
But it's an example of how the different subgenres can mix within the same film, and that can be really exciting. Well, I think when as an audience, that's what I like as an audience person is I love to be able to go into a movie. I like to go in cold. I like when I go to see a movie, it's like, if I know I'm going to see it, it's like, I will not watch the trailer. I just try to avoid reading anything about it, especially reviews, because they tend to give you a giant plot synopsis. Yeah. I like if I know I'm going to see a movie, like, I want to see that movie. I try to know nothing about it and then go see it. And then, because that way I like to be surprised. And then after that, I'll read the reviews and look at the trailer and that kind of stuff. But I like to go in cold.
I'm the same way, and I like to hear the director's.
It's fun, and I love it when there's a movie that you think it's going one way and then it goes into another. It's like, to me, really exciting in horror when you can't quite figure out what, it's fun that way, because it's like evolves and it has the twists and turns and it's just organic and it's just a lot of fun. And a lot of marketing now, I get it, they want to sell the movie, but lots of times to sell the movie they kind of blow everything. And maybe that'll make someone rent and watch the movie, but it's really going to diminish their experience because they'll take stuff from the third act. And for me, I'm a very visual person. So when I watch a trailer like that, I remember those images. So it will affect me as I'm watching the movie because I know in the back of my brain things are coming because I haven't seen it yet from the trailer. Maybe other people can watch the trailer and kind of blank after seeing it and not have it ruined for them. But so the trailer for our last film, Echoes of Fear, it was a real challenge for me was to do a trailer which has the mood and the atmosphere and tells you it's a suspenseful, scary movie, but at the same time, and shows good images in there, but at the same time doesn't blow the movie. So you can still have the experience where that suspense and scares and stuff will work when you see the movie, that the trailer hasn't ruined it. That was a big challenge. I think I ended up doing like 6 or 7 drafts of the trailer, working with I worked with the foreign sales agent, foreign distributor on it as well, getting some notes. I got notes from other people as well. I mean, I kept getting notes that people felt like what could help market the movie. And then I had to figure out a way to kind of do those notes without ruining, giving anything away and ruining it. So it was a challenge.
Sure.
It was a challenge.
Can you think of some current films? Because let's say Hereditary, I didn't know too much about it going in. And I was pleasantly surprised by the twists and turns. And I wouldn't say I'm like a total horror, fanatic. Right. But I was really impressed with that. Can you think of other films where it really takes you on a ride where you're not expecting stuff?
Oh gosh, so often in horror, it's so good about that. I'm trying to think. Oh gosh.
Even Carrie. I mean, I use those 2 examples probably too much, so I've got to stop. But
well, no, Carrie's great. See, that's a great example. I mean, it's hard to remember now because, the marketing turned into her soaked in the blood.
Right, on the stage.
But initially, everyone of course, that also came from the book. So in a way, they assumed that a lot of people already knew the basic gist of the story because of the Stephen King book. Sure. So I think they probably weren't too worried about ruining it. I was just thinking about an example of one and then I lost it.
Well, The Exorcist too, because you're not really totally sure. You hope that she's going to be cured.
Right.
But you don't know, and the doctor, he becomes increasingly more and more angry,
right?
And kind of becomes his own monster,
Right. Well, that's it's funny. Both those, it's such a challenge when they're based on a book, because then you're dealing with the expectation that everyone wants it to follow the book, But then it's a movie, so you have to adapt it. You can't just do the book, because usually in a book, especially a Stephen King book, so much is internal with what's inside the characters' heads, which you can't really get. You have to kind of a great example is The Shining, which is an amazing book by Stephen King, and it's an amazing movie by Stanley Kubrick. They're very, very, very different, but they're both amazing. I mean, Kubrick basically took the essence of what was in King's book and said, well, how can I tell this visually in a movie that will work? And, I think King got really mad because a lot of things were dropped. And a lot of things, unless you've read the book, you wouldn't even understand when watching the movie. But Kubrick knew it had to be its own thing. Instead of the hedge monsters, you have the hedge maze. Because he knew that the hedge monsters is great in the book, but especially at that time with the special effects, it could be really cheesy and just, not work and become a laughable thing. So he kind of made that same scary environment, but making the hotel a character, but doing it visually with the camera, like the great shot following behind the kid on the big wheel, riding through the hallway of the thing. So, and I was trying to think of your first question about movies that surprised you when you watched it. My brain is just out of nerves, is just defaulting back to the early movies I saw when I was younger, John Carpenter's The Thing. I knew nothing about that when I watched it, and it's so different from the original movie version, and so different from the short story that you just had no idea going into that movie what was going to happen. And I'm assuming it's not a spoiler now because everyone's seen this movie. but when you're watching the movie and you have this dog and you're like, oh my gosh, don't shoot the dog. Who are these crazy people in the helicopter shooting at this poor dog? And then of course you realize later the people in the helicopter know what that dog is, and it's not a dog, and it's the alien, it's the creature. But when you're first watching it and having that experience, you don't know that. So it's so great because it tricks your sympathies because it's you don't know what's going to happen. And that's a great movie where you never know who the creature is and who's the person who actually is the alien. So that constantly changes and evolves, and you don't know where it's going. It's such a effective film with environment as well, with the location. And people forget because everyone knows now Norman Bates is the killer in Psycho. But when Psycho came out, people did not know that. So people thought that there was this guy with this crazy murdering mother doing this. I mean, it's what the original people watching Psycho believed. And, Hitchcock made this whole thing please don't ruin the ending. It's the only ending I have, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. But that was part of the marketing. It was don't blow the ending. And so for people to have that experience and not know, it's unfortunately, by the time I saw Psycho, it was so known that Norman Bates is the killer that you don't get that experience anymore. But imagine to be in the theater and have that experience of watching Psycho, not knowing that Norman Bates is the killer, and you have such sympathy for him because he's this poor henpecked boy. So that's a great example. And I don't know, it's how hard would it be now to try to put out a movie like Psycho for the first time and not have it be ruined? Not have it be spoiled and ruined. It'd be so difficult now with social media and everything. It's just very difficult. And basically people have to beg. It's please don't, the filmmakers basically say please don't ruin the ending, And then everyone rushes to the theater sometimes to see it the first weekend because they know it's going to be ruined. Because once it comes out, everyone's going to start blathering about it and writing articles, and there'll be spoilers now in headlines. I won't read the article because I don't want to ruin the movie, but then they'll blow it in the headline. You're like, what are you doing? So it's just by seeing the headline, it's kind of ruining something from the film.
Or on Twitter. I see a lot.
Yeah, Twitter. It's it's very frustrating. I think to be able to go into a movie night cold is very difficult. I think you have to actively work on it.